Thanks, Rap. Good morning. We'll call to order the September 19th meeting of the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee. And I'm Lee Shurtleff, Chairman of the committee. With me are legislators Susan Currie, Randy Brown. We were expecting Mike Lane. Greg Mezey is asked to be excused. He may be joining us from Zoom. And we've also got Ann Corman here from the legislature joining us today, and she's a liaison to the case board, and we've got an item on the agenda a little further down. Are there any changes to the agenda? No changes. Are there any public comments this morning? Nobody's filled out a form or online with us? Okay. Chair's report. I don't have anything to add. I would call attention that Mike Lane spoke Tuesday night about the airport activities, and I think Roxanne will probably tell us about their highly successful day that they held Saturday with the airport day. First item we have on the agenda, Arel, are you going to help us with this one? We have an item was asked by several members of the legislature to do an update on climate sustainability, and in particular with the green facilities. And I know we've received a letter of support regarding the green facilities. So I'll let you brief us on where we're at with those facilities and issues, and okay, see what discussion we may have from the committee moving forward.
Okay. So we are currently doing phase 2 of the green facilities capital project, nearing completion, we hope, by the end of this year. We started that in 2022. Phase 1. And when we presented it about 4 years ago, it was going to be a 3-phase project. And as I said, we're about to complete phase 1. So for the 2025 capital program, we submitted a phase 2 project. That one was not in the recommended budget, county administrator's budget, because of the challenges that we have with various other capital projects. We had presented it, at least when we went over the capital review, that there are 3 projects as part of this phase 2. One is the Human Services Building boiler replacements. Those boilers are original to the building. It was built in 1997. So we indicated that if we don't get funding, that we would most likely have to replace those boilers within the next year. And if not, we would either have to take funding from contingency budget, but there was just a high priority to get it done. The 2 other projects, there were 3 solar canopies at the Public Works facility, at the Human Services Building, and at the Health Department. And then the 3rd project was geothermal at the Emergency Response Center. That building was built in 2004, Lee, and the heating and cooling plant are original to the building. So we were looking in the next 2 to 3 years to replace that. So it made sense to go geothermal there. So we still have some life in those systems, although I did report to F&I several months ago that we had a problem with the chiller. And fortunately, we were able to replace 2 of the compressors at a cost of under $10,000. But otherwise, had we not had plans to do a phase 2, we would have replaced the entire chiller, which would have been a big expense, which then I would say then we would be throwing money away, because if we decided to do geothermal, a few years after that, we'd have to replace the chiller, because you wouldn't need a chiller for geothermal. So those are 3 projects. The order priority are Human Services Building, and then I would say the geothermal. However, Terry, that was planning to be here, but he's on vacation, has been working with us for the last couple of years. He's one that looks at what funding opportunities exist. And so we have been able to obtain grant funding for projects that we did under phase 1 that would allow us to do this human services boilers project. We have the money already in the green facilities capital account. And also he was able to obtain funding to allow us to do one of the solar canopies, the one at the health department. Outside of those two, we do not have enough funding to do the geothermal or the other two solar canopies. Terry did indicate that he has submitted for IRA funding for the geothermal emergency response, but it's a match. So if we were to get the funding and not want to turn it down, that we would have to set aside money to do that. And his recommendation was that we either, come back to the committee and say, hey, can we get it, from contingency fund? Otherwise, we would have to turn down the funding. As I said, it's not in the recommended budget at this point. PDQ, I think, is bringing forward this resolution to encourage the legislators to reconsider that. But I think as a minimum, I was going to let you know that we have grant funding to allow us to do the boilers and one of the solar canopies, but nothing beyond that.
Randy.
Just a point of information. So originally, I believe $14 million was set aside for phase 1 and phase 2, but the cost, I'm sorry, $14 million was put aside to do phase 1 and phase 2, but the cost grew so much that we're only able to do phase 1 and a few things in phase 2. Is that still the case?
Well, when we first presented this green facilities capital project, it's probably been 5 years ago, when we did an initial assessment of all the energy projects that we could do, it was $30 million. And so we were going to do it in 3 phases, and we were trying to do it around 10 million per phase. Phase 1, what Johnson Controls does an initial audit, then they do detailed engineering. And in the detailed engineering process, with my involvement at Terry's, we looked at some of the projects, and Public Works was going to be 50% geothermal. And at the time, the funding that we've applied to, and actually that we hope to be getting by the end of this year, said that if you did the whole facility, that you could apply for this grant. So we went 100%. So phase 1, 75% of the increase in phase 1 from the 7.5 million to the 14.5 million, that 7 million, was attributed 75% to additional scope that we added to phase 1. And some of those things were projects that had been originally slated to be done in phase 2. We said we can't wait that long. And library is one of them. We replaced all the rooftop units at the library, 6 of them, because we've had so many failures over the years, and that we renovated that 25 years ago. And so we moved phase 2 projects into phase 1. So 75% of the increase was these scope increases, which was library, and which was also the Public Works facility going 100% geothermal, and then some other minor additions in some of the other buildings. And then the 25% was, after COVID, inflation, and those costs. But it was not all attributed to just increases in cost. It was scope increases.
Great, thank you. So with the funds you currently have, will all the items in phase 1 be completed?
Well, all the items in phase 1 will be complete at the end of this year. Phase 2, after completing phase 2, we still have phase 3 projects.
I realize, I'm just trying to understand, so is phase 1 going to be, everything on phase 1 initially presented is going to be complete by the end of the year with the funding that we had?
Yes, it's already been authorized and approved, correct.
Okay, and was all that funding cash? Was it bonded?
No, it was bonded, and we are currently, we have a bond payment of $500,000 per year through 2041 on phase 1.
And so, I mean, just so you know, some of the projects that would be in a phase 3 are like geothermal at the health department. And that's a larger project. So it would have increased the cost under phase 2 quite a bit more. So we're delaying other projects, but in order to accomplish, our carbon reduction goals, we still have a phase 3. And really the most significant project under a phase 3 would be geothermal at the health department.
And you mentioned that by doing all of the work at the public, at the highway buildings and whatnot,
Public Works.
that there may be a grant that we've applied for that may be getting some funds?
Well, no, we've applied for it, and conservatively, we're thinking we're going to get just over $1 million. We could get up to $2 million. So that we're hoping
And then
$2 million, but even as a minimum, we've factored that $1 million.
And when is the timing for that? I mean, when do you hope to know?
Well, when I talked to Terry, and I talk to him periodically, I spoke to him last week, he's hoping by the end of the year. We've submitted all the paperwork over the last several months. He's worked with Johnson Controls to provide any information forms and such. And this is kind of the first round, so most municipalities and counties have not gone through the process yet, so it's hard to gauge, but from what they're telling us, it'll be by the end of the year.
And all those funds would go into the green facilities?
Correct.
Account for projects? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ian, you've got some insight on this?
I'm hoping and to gain more insight, so thanks for letting me attend and speak up. So one of the things that you said was, I believe, for the geothermal for this Department of Emergency Response, and you said you have secured a grant for 50%, is that correct?
Yeah, it'd be a matching. So whatever we get from them, we would have to match it. But we're not sure if we're going to get it. And so that's why Terry has explained it to myself and to county administration that if we were to get it, it wouldn't look good to turn it down. So then we would have to come up with the matching funds to do that. He won't know until probably close to the end of the year whether that comes through.
So to me, that seems like if, just speaking from a legislator point of view, if we or I was to push for something that's not already in the queue or in the budget, it might be something like that because we're getting matching funds, or we're applied for matching funds, but we won't know till the end of the year, which so through the budget process makes it a bit difficult to even figure out. Do we have an amount on that?
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not.
So for me, it would be helpful to know the amount and then what additional that would add to our bonding amount if we got that and we went forward. I don't know if there's any other information we would want to know. Because we said there's
about $2 million.
$2 million is for the whole thing or half? Or
That would be our part.
And do we know what that would add to for bonding? I'm assuming would we be able to get that if we don't have it now, but maybe later to get that figures?
Will this be coming up again at peak?
So we already discussed last week, we got the resolution from the case board. And so we were wanting to get more information, and this is as soon as we could get more information, which was now here. They sent their resolution, the case board, to F&I because green facilities go through here, but also peak planning, energy, and environmental quality because we deal with environmental things and they report to us. So they wanted us to bring up that discussion on, like, what would be, what would be the next steps what would be the priorities for us. And so this is the information that we wanted to get. So this is helpful for me.
Randy.
What questions are out? So currently about $750,000 in the green facilities capital account, something like that? Seems that was, the grants were someplace around there, I thought, that we got 700 or something.
It'll be higher once we get the.
I wasn't counting the $1 million.
Excuse me?
I wasn't counting
Okay. Well, it's actually lower than that. I think we're right. What we have actually already is showing as revenue is around 300,000. I think we're expecting others, not the million, but others that should be rolling in the next couple of months. So yeah, excluding the million from the IRA, it'll probably be around $700,000, which is still not enough to do the human services building boilers.
So if you had all the money you needed for the human services building, what would you be doing there?
There we're replacing 2 boilers, original. They're copper fin tube boilers, so they're not as energy efficient as any of other boilers in any of the buildings. We have condensing boilers. And so we were replacing the boilers, some of the valves for our variable speed drives that help with the energy, so we're not always running the pumps full bore, and doing programming of those, the heating plant, and I think some additional 3-way valves as well. But it's really the key are the 2 boilers. And we have 1 boiler that we replaced maybe 3 years ago, so we're not touching that one. And that 1 boiler is a condensing boiler. And we have some redundancy in the building, so if we do lose a boiler, we have at least 1 boiler that can kick in, so that not all 3 boilers are running at the same time. We lead lag them. So always want to have redundancy there. So really the focus are the boilers and some of the pump systems and controls for the heating plant.
So if you had sufficient funds, that's what you would be doing?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And so with this $1 million coming in, would that do that whole building the way you want it done? If you had $1.7 million, would that do that whole building the way you want it done?
Yes, it's more than what we need. So it'll do, we need about $1 million to do the work.
And you also mentioned that the mental health building needed all new windows, you think, or you're going to do some, you have to, right?
Yeah, that is an even factor. So no, we would not have enough with that funding to do like the windows at mental health. So that's something that's we're deferring. That's part of kind of our deferred maintenance. It was originally part of our facilities capital restoration. And then since it has kind of an energy component to it, we save energy. It's not a big one. We put it into the Johnson controls, but when we were looking at phase 1, or actually phase 2, we were saying it's more money than we can comfortably approach the legislature for. So we've put it aside, and that could be a phase 3 or it could be a facilities restoration capital project.
And lastly, not today or not next week, maybe a future F&I meeting, if you could show the phase 2, all the phase 2 that is hoped to be done next, that maybe some things have been completed to show what's left on phase 2?
So
and an estimate of cost?
The kind of the original phase 2 that we pared down to get to these kind of 3 projects, is that what you're saying? Because yeah, the original phase 2 had other projects like the geothermal, which we said we can't, because that was close to another 30 million. I think it was like $26 million. So we reduced it down to the 7.3, I think, here.
I'm just trying to understand where you were when you approved phase 2. So that's, and so I'm trying to, because I wasn't here then, so I'm trying to understand phase 1's done, great.
Right.
What's left on phase 2, and what that cost would be.
Yeah,
so that's my
Terry and I can actually go through all of the original phases and how we broke it down and what the current phase 2 is and what's left to do, I think would be helpful. And I've done that. It's been a while. It's probably within the last year I did that. But yeah, we can do that. Great.
There's no hurry, so I just wanted, you're busy, I know.
Ian?
Yeah, for me, it would be helpful to also have, I know you have other projects and things right now, as does administration too. So for instance, the figures for the boiler at Department of Emergency Response, I'm not sure if I remember the figures, but like say if you had to just replace it with a like boiler, was the figure something like $500,000?
Yeah.
But maybe that's something.
Yeah, because when we did the last presentation some months ago, we showed kind of the options that we had and our recommendation, I think, so Human Services, we looked at geothermal, and it was just a challenge. We didn't have enough real estate there to do well fields, and we didn't want to do a partial because then we'd have two systems in the building, and to really run the piping through, it was very difficult to do and costly. So we said, really, we have to replace the boiler, so let's just replace them with much more energy efficient. As painful as that was to Terry, because we wanted to go, and I wanted to go geothermal as well. And so we looked at options, and you're right, for the emergency response center, we also looked at kind of replacing it with more energy efficient, boilers and chillers, but our preferred option was the geothermal. So yes, I don't have it in front of me, but I can obviously do that very soon and kind of go over those options again.
Yeah, and if you could send us that, so for instance, like, you're the top one as far as because of matching funds, because of the age of the system, and then if we could figure out like what that would be, the cost difference in that, and then what that might be costing us for bonding or to pay outright. Is that
Lisa?
the right question?
And Norma just hopped on, but she's been feeding me numbers. It looked as though the worst case scenario, if for that geothermal upgrade at Dewar, if we were obligated to pay the, $2 million in matching funds, it would be roughly $180,000 to $200,000 per year bond payments for over 15 years.
Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful to have.
I'm calculating a little bit, that's $3 million then is what you're looking at potentially for the
It's $2 million.
$2 million plus interest.
Right.
Yes, plus interest. And that would be, it would hopefully get better from there in terms of what we received in grants.
I think we built that building for about $2 million, $1 million to equip it, if I remember right.
Probably. It's been so long, so many other projects we had. But yeah, it was 2004, 2003, 2004.
They have a 20-year celebration. Yeah. Any further questions? I think we've got some ideas of the status where we are, and it's good to hear that some of phase 2 was able to be rolled into phase 1. And as Randy said, there's a couple of us, well, several of us here that have come in midway through the process. So whatever you can provide to us that gives us a nice overview of
Sure.
what was anticipated and what we've accomplished and what's reachable is always helpful.
Okay.
Can that be sent to all legislators, especially since we're in the middle of budgeting?
Yeah, I would think that would be good. Hi, Lisa.
I see Norma had a hand up. It's down.
Oh, I was just going to share that I pulled up the report that we received from Terry and Arel, and the boiler replacement for HSB, it was, with the rebates, was $572,743 for the high efficiency replacement. Just wanted to help Arel out so he didn't have to go back searching for it.
Thanks, Norma. Anything further on this topic? As long as we've got you here, do you have anything you wanted to bring us for facilities today?
Well, I'm not sure if Lisa's going to report on the center of government or any of that.
We do have a item for downtown
Okay.
facilities, no
So, yeah,
topics
I can
listed
wait.
underneath it.
I can wait for that.
Okay, thanks, Earl.
All right, thank you.
Well, we'll move to the county administrator's report.
I don't have anything in particular. There's a resolution under county administration, which Heather Chappell from Weights and Measures is here to speak to.
Hi, Heather. Heather, are you with us? We can come back to that.
If so, we're not able to hear you on this end.
I don't know if this is on the floor yet. I talked to Heather about this morning while she's trying to get in. And this is just simply the reimbursement for the work that she's going to take on to check on the, excuse me, to go out and do the inspections on the gas pumps. But again, I'm not sure whether you've had a motion to accept them.
We haven't.
Okay.
We got resolution number, document ID 12681, resolution authorizing agreement with the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets for the provision of petroleum product quality program services. Moved by Randy, second by Susan. It appears the allotment they've been provided is $2,880, and the aggregate amount would for the year would be $14,400. So this is a quarterly reimbursement. Moved and seconded.
Actually, the way I read that, it's a yearly reimbursement over 5 years.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, right.
Thank you for that clarification. Any discussion? Or all, those that are able to vote are all here, all in favor? Are there any opposed? Well, motion will carry. Thank you. Let's go ahead to the Highway Department. Jeff Smith, I see online.
Yep.
There he is. Morning, Jeff.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. For your consideration today, there's a resolution to transfer $10,000 to help us purchase it's an air conditioning testing holding unit for the trend with the newer modern cars is a more environmentally friendly air conditioning fluid. And our older machine does not work with that one, so we're forced to schedule appointments, send it out. It's been going on for the last several years. We knew more and more units were coming online, so we started looking around for a little bit of funding. The good news is that the funding, the requirement or the purchase of this machine has come down quite a bit from the very early couple of years when we first started becoming aware of it. Looks like we're looking to transfer $10,000 out of the contingency, so we're able to purchase that machine.
Yeah, this did go through budget last week, and there was a discussion, and it passed there. It's resolution ID number 12673A, appropriation from contingent fund, Highway Department for highway air conditioning equipment. Do I have a motion? Susan, second by Randy. Any questions for Jeff on this? And from contingent, what does that mean when it gets to the legislature? We'll have to have a certain number of votes when we get there. But
I'm not sure that,
No.
I don't think the
it
majority.
will be
of-
recommended by both committees.
Yep.
Further discussion, questions? All in favor? Shows unanimous. Motion approves. Any report or items for us today, Jeff?
No, nothing exceptional. We're finishing up our annual paving schedule, couple roads up in the town of Groton. We should be finished those today, which we'll then follow with our shoulder work and matching in all of our driveways and things. So our work isn't done, but our vendor pave projects are completed this week of this season.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate the attention out in Groton.
Thought you'd like that. Thank you.
Randy's got a question here.
Yes, Jeff. I didn't realize it till I took a tour of your facility that you folks do a lot of the repairs on all the county's vehicles. How is that going well, and what are the advantages of that? Do you think it's less expensive for the county to be doing it ourselves? And just wanted to, it's budget season, I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. The history on that is the idea of us using a vendor to doing the maintenance on those vehicles. We've, for many years, have done a few departments. We started, quite a few years ago, probably like 10 years ago, we started doing the sheriff's department. Before that, they had gone through a process of procuring a vendor to do the work. It was an issue. The idea that, what we put on is a higher quality brake pad, rotor. The sheriff's department, I can speak to specifically where they were much happier with our service and the way we did things. The scheduling is also another easier process. Clearly the private vendors that would get involved with something like that are serving their customers as well. A lot of times our vehicles aren't purchased from them, they're procured wherever we can, so that we would take more of a back seat to customers that were to purchase a vehicle through that vendor. These are just the things that are coming to mind. There was a lot of different reasons to look at cost savings at the time. I know that our comparatively things that we do is much less than what an upcharge vendor would supply. I don't have any specifics. We have not done that look at that in a long time, but we have all of our records on what we expend, and I actually brought this up at the budget meeting as to how we were able to do a deep dive and kind of look at the revenue that our department in this highway machinery area of our budget was able to increase our revenue to cover that 5% cut. We were historically not necessarily undercharging, because we were still charging the departments these amounts, but we were under budgeting the revenue side, which created a hole in our department, kind of a end of the year reckoning thing, more than what we saw as a problem. But it does, in all, I think the program runs very well. I think all the departments, we've brought in a lot of different departments, even the larger vehicles from airport at this point that we do service on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a little experience with them when I was at emergency response, and they took on doing our vehicles shortly after the sheriff's, and it was a big benefit to the department, and there was a recognizable cost savings from having to work with multiple area vendors. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Roxanne is on board with us from the airport. No pun intended.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'll start off with an update on the airport day and preparedness expo. Couldn't have asked for a better day. The weather was perfect. We had over 250 participants in the runway 5K. Around 800 pancake breakfasts were sold through East Hill. There was a constant steady stream of visitors we noticed this year. There was just there seemed to be a lot more people. They were spread out. There was a lot more for them to do. So the positive engagement we kept hearing from the community was really a great testament to, to everybody here, through the county. Emergency response and multiple other departments were involved, and they had tables set up. So you got to, talk about what you did as a county department. There was the blood drive over at the health department. Emergency preparedness was full. People had signed up for that. They had a full class for that. So it was just a really great day. Couldn't ask for a better one, and, already looking forward to next year.
Thanks, Roxanne. Mike Lane gave a very glowing summary at Tuesday night's meeting, and I know I've spoken with several emergency responders that were participating that day, and they were pleased with the crowds they saw and the level of interest there. So thank you. Congratulations. Kudos.
Yeah, it was, the team did a great job pulling it together. I can't take any credit for that. It was all on them. So, and everybody that was involved really did a great job. And there was multiple things to see and do. We had, United Airlines was actually here. They had set up a table. We're talking to people. We had people cutting apart cars so that they could see that. And the kids just loved it all. And so it was a good event. It was really good to bring the community together. And I think that's a huge part of, what we need to do as a county.
Thanks.
Yep.
We have a resolution under item 8B, Airport Customs Facility, ID number 12721. Do we want to move that to discuss it? Moved by Randy, second by Susan. And there is a memorandum that supports this. Do you have a summary that you'd like to provide here?
So, I brought this to Budget and Capital as well, or Budget and Personnel Committee as well. Again, and I talked about it in my budget presentation, the amount of money that Customs is costing and the revenue we're getting just doesn't, it's not something feasible that the airport can continue to do. We had $273,000 was the expense that we paid in 2023, and we brought in roughly $15,000 in revenue. There was only, I think I got an updated number from January through yesterday. We had 26 flights through Customs, and only 2 of them were not Cornell related. The remaining of the flights were Cornell related. In 2023, we had 26 flights total. So it's costing a lot of money. The flights aren't there, and it's not a sustainable business venture for the airport. I've gathered a bunch of information, worked with county administration, we've worked with New York State DOT, we've worked with Customs, and we can close the facility. There are some stipulations within that have to be met. We have to repurpose the facility and kind of give a plan to New York State DOT on what we're going to do. With the strategic plan that we're working on now, there are some opportunities there that have been noted. So we'll be exploring those if the legislature, does move forward with closing it, because ultimately it's the county legislature's decision to close the facility or keep it open. So we're just gathered all the information and it's all there. And
Thanks, Roxanne. We have seen this before. I'll let the record reflect Mike Lane has joined us. Mike.
My apologies for being late.
Understood. We've moved and seconded the resolution 8B regarding Customs. Does anybody have the Customs facility, anybody have any questions? Randy?
Yes, Roxanne, thanks for your work on this. I know it's a lot to take on and figure out. So you have to apply, and you have to give a 120 days notice of closing the facility. When would you anticipate that being able to be done?
I think it really all depends, after, whatever the legislature decides, and then we have to, send some information through New York State DOT. They're willing to work with us. Kind of have to give them a plan of what we're looking at doing with the facility moving forward. And I think once everything's in place and everyone's in agreement, we can then, give the notice.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Mike?
This is the resolution that's suggesting that we close the customs facility. I'm totally opposed to it. Yes, it's costing us some money, but our airport is our global economic engine, and this is bringing connections into particularly Cornell and some of the private FBO traffic. It means they don't have to go to some other airport to go through customs to get to us. Yes, right now it's not making money. It's losing money. But you know, this isn't the first time that we've had to put money from the taxpayers or ratepayers into programs. And I give you an example would be the our solid waste materials and solid waste management. Several years ago, maybe 3 or 4 now, the cost of recycling went way up, and the amount that we received from the sale of recyclable materials went way down, and there were things that we were collecting and recycling that we couldn't even sell. We'd had to crush bottles and things like that. I'm not trying to pit the two enterprise against one another, but I just want to show you an example. Since 2021, we had to raise the solid waste fee to bring in almost another $1 million to keep recycling going. I'm glad we did, because I think recycling is important. I think the people of our community like it. But I also think the airport's important. We've been very, very lucky over many years to have an airport that was self-sustaining on the fees that it was generating. Unlike most airports around us or in the region where the municipalities do put money into the operations of their airports. We had to put some in when we got the grant from the state for the expansion, and also got the whammy of the pandemic, which just killed our flights and cut down the number of people that were able to travel. That's recovering slowly. I think it's a big mistake to close the customs facility now. If we have to put some money into it for a while, I think that's money well spent. We don't have a connection by highway or rail to the outside world, and this is our global connection, and that's why I certainly can't support this. I didn't support it in budget, and I'm not going to support it here.
Thanks, Mike. Roxanne, was there discussion at budget, I'm trying to recall, about the ability to reestablish the customs aspect if somewhere down the line it became a possibility again?
There is a possibility. With speaking with customs, what you'd have to do is, so if they had a different setup for their facility, say they had a different plan for what the facility looked like, we would have to modify the facility or possibly build a new one if things had changed drastically, or depending on if we repurpose this facility, where we were at with that. Yes, you can, but it would be a whole new application. You would have to reapply.
Thanks.
Yep.
Further questions, comments? Shall we vote? All in favor of the resolution? Opposed? 3-1. Thank you.
Yep.
We get a resolution to authorize a lease extension with Federal Aviation Administration through September 30, 2026 for navigational aid facility, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport ID 12741. Moved by Susan, second by Mike. Anything you want to add to this, Roxanne?
So this is really, it's just extending the lease to allow the FAA time to remove some of the equipment and stuff they have housed on a small piece of land. They decommissioned the outer marker and non-directional beacon equipment, and it's been turned off, but they just need time, and it looks like the project will happen 2025, 2026, so that it's just to extend it 2 years to allow them time to do that.
Any questions? Mike?
Roxanne, I just wondered why they decommissioned that. Has it been replaced by something else?
I'm not positive on that, Mike. I believe it has, but I don't have a definitive answer on that. And it was just, this actually came through, and I had forgotten actually about this up there, and I remembered like 2 years ago they said they were decommissioning it, but I don't recall if they've replaced it with something somewhere else, which I believe they have.
Is that out on Hill
I'll verify
Road?
that, Mike, and let you know.
Further questions? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Anything more for us, Roxanne?
So I sent just kind of an outline of an update on air service information that had been asked about. And I'm just I'll kind of give some more details on that information. So the pilot shortage.
Package
it
page
is
number
easing.
8.
Yep, there should be a departmental update sheet in there.
Yep.
So the pilot shortage is easing. There's some new training academies that are opening. They're attracting, pilots with more pay, and so hopefully that continues to grow and our pilots return. Regional airlines, they're also getting, more aircraft in. SkyWest has actually started flying 50-seat jets that United used to operate to Newark, which will allow SkyWest, which is a regional carrier, to increase flights in 2025 and 2026 and hopefully back to the pre-pandemic levels. So, growth is happening. With the ultra low-cost carriers like Avelo and Breeze, there's still more uncertainty with those outside of major cities, given the economy and their profitability and how they operate. So the super ultra low-cost carriers are still a touchy situation. Our enplanements are growing. So I calculated, we just did the information. So January through June 2023 versus 2024, we are up 23% in enplanements over that time period. So that's great. We're not to pre-pandemic levels, but we're increasing it, and that's a higher increase than what I was anticipating. Our load factors, again, are doing extremely well. We have the market here anywhere from 80 to 90% on both Delta and United in April, May, and June. So that's great news. Customers, why are people, still wanting to fly Ithaca? It's a convenience. People love the convenience. In 2023, the airport was used by 118,000 travelers. So those are enplanements and deplanements. And from some surveys and other information we gathered, 60% of that are locals within the county or local within the market, and about 40% are visitors. And people are traveling to visit friends and family. That seems to be one of the larger percentages. They like to be able to fly out of here with the ease and the convenience. About 22% for vacation and 22% for business. So things, people are still traveling and people are increasing their travel. The state DOT recently released the 2022 economic impact data. 368 employed thanks to the airport, up here, 270 directly and 98 indirectly. So, outlying jobs that relate to that. About 3.6 million in state and local taxes. The total income, 24.6 million, about 19.2 direct and about 5.4 induced income. These numbers aren't where they were from the I think 2019 economic impact study. Obviously, again, the pandemic and other things have changed, but it's still, really an economic benefit that the airport provides, to Tompkins County and the surrounding area.
Thanks, Roxanne. These are helpful to hear the updated numbers and encouraging. It looks like things are starting to come back.
They are, and I was impressed with the increase in employments. That's a big deal.
And we are looking forward to the special or additional flights in the holiday season coming up.
Yep, and we're working on again with our current airline partners, United and Delta, and getting service back to the DC area. That's something that's on the radar, pun intended, for hopefully the first quarter of 2025.
That's one I do hear about from folks, is the Washington connection. Mike?
And people love the early morning
so do I.
flights too, and we're thankful for those that we have.
This is going to date me, but does the Civil Aeronautics Board still exist? Do you know by any chance?
They do. There's civil avionics. I don't see them as much. We used to see them more frequently, but they are still in the area. Yep.
Pardon me. Because there was a time, I think, the CAB required a lot of the regional airports to be serviced. And then we had the deregulation, I think it was in the 80s and 90s. Fact is, a professor at Cornell was the head of the CAB and was all excited about deregulation. And that, along as well as all the other deregulation we went through, never was to the benefit of the consumers. After that, it was always to the benefit of the companies. But we had a lot more local service when there was requirements about that. So I just kind of wondered whether they dissolved that board or not. I haven't heard about it for a long time.
I haven't either, and I will actually look into that too for you, Mike, and get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, no hurry, but I just kind of wondered.
Sure.
Yeah, this is kind of a funny story. I was speaking to somebody in Enfield, and on Applegate Road, there is an international airport. So it's designated as such, and so I thought that was quite interesting. And somehow the gentleman applied for it and got it, so that was interesting. But what did you budget for an increase in employments for 2025?
I think I increased them by 15%, so I think, we may actually be looking at more. So I'll look at those as well, and that will affect our PFCs, which is, a good thing as well.
No, that's a good number, I think. Thank you.
Mike?
I was late, I apologize, but if it wasn't said, I really want to congratulate you on probably the best airport day that I've experienced.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I gave a report on that, and I have to give kudos to the team that put it together. They did an amazing job, and they continue to do a great job, and we're looking forward to next year even bigger and better. So,
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Randy, that international airport in Enfield caused us a several-month delay in constructing a radio communications tower because it appeared on maps at the time, and
It does still.
caused quite a commotion when the applications were being reviewed in Washington. And I don't know if they had to physically come out and look to see if there were hazards, but it did stop us for a while.
Randy, does it have a customs facility up there?
I don't believe so, but they do fly remote-controlled airplanes and things like that. So.
Anything further for Roxanne? Thank you.
thank you, guys.
Is there anything for downtown facilities discussion? I know Arel has held back here for us in case we wanted to bring anything up to date on that.
We didn't have a meeting in September. Our next meeting is October 8th. We're in the process of finalizing the RFQs that we received and in negotiation with the selected companies, and that process should be completed, I would say, within the next month.
Any questions? Mike?
This is for Arel. Arel, any luck finding a source to replace our copper downspout for this building that was stolen? And I watched a couple of rainstorms, and it was kind of gushing down there, hitting the wall.
Yes, we've found a source. It's the same cross-section of the gutter. It's copper. We have to get 2 sections because the original was 10 foot and it's only available in 8-foot sections. It actually has gone to, I know the district attorney's office, actually the individual was found in Elmira, and they were pressing charges. I think they had a grand jury on this case a couple of weeks ago. And one of our supervisors had information, so was involved in providing that to this district attorney's office. So they are pursuing
well, kudos to them
reimbursement
for pursuing that. That's great. The next section up looks like it's dented in. Do we need more than one section?
I can talk to our supervisor, and if we need to buy more, we may as well do that.
All right. I don't mean to hit you up with a lot of details, but it's our building here, so.
Yeah. No.
Lisa?
Another somewhat related topic, I wanted to say we're working through and close to finalizing the closing with INHS on the Sear Street property. May be as soon as this week. I will let you all and the full legislature know when that is complete. In the meantime, if you've driven by, you may have seen they've begun the foundation work, and we have, as part of the purchase agreement and the closing with them, they have a temporary easement while they are doing the construction on that parcel, 6 months.
We're going to build the walkway after they get done building? Is that what we're going to do?
That's the plan, yes.
Yeah.
So they're going to move fairly rapidly then if the foundations are going in?
That's correct. It's my understanding they have the structures that they are placing on the property are pre-built and are just awaiting transport. So once the foundation is built, I think the rest will happen rather quickly.
Randy?
Lisa, the revenue we're getting from the sale to NHS and the red building, is that in our budget for receiving that revenue?
It is. I would have to go back and
Just wanted to.
look. Yeah.
Okay. And I have a question for Rel. So you're working on the Key Bank building for changing that. And I was walking around because we were here late last night, and the lighting is not good all around the campus there. So even from the courthouse, so that whole area there, it's not very bright. And I think lighting is a definite deterrent for people to collect in areas. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on lighting.
So as part of what we've been looking at for the Key Bank building for this temporary use, we are going to be looking at least the perimeter lighting around the Key Bank. There are fixtures there, and so I met last week with contractors to discuss not only improvements inside the building for the short-term use, but also on the outside. So lighting was one of those. If we need to look at, like, let's say the professional building to put on some light packs or something there to improve it, we will. Courthouse, most of our lighting is either pole lighting around the front steps or in the back, but they're also up lights. So I know that, and I've already started to talk to our staff we always check as we get into this time of the year, since it gets darker early, to check all our exterior lighting and to see if we need to either replace lighting or increase the light levels. So I'll take a look at that. Typically I'm not here that late, but I will take a look at it probably earlier in the morning, maybe easier for me to look at that lighting. So, yeah, I agree. With the temporary use of the key bank, lighting was one of the issues that we were considering last week when we met with contractors.
Yeah, I park over there when we have our meetings, so it's
Okay.
yeah, so that's why I'm over there. But even the lighting around Twit Park, it's some really dark areas, and I'm just concerned that, people who may take advantage of homeless people may find places to hang out. And the safety of people, and I think it's really important. I think over-lighting it is the way to go.
I agree.
Yeah.
So we will look at that.
And my second question was, any discussing about fencing of, like, for example, between the assessment office and the Key Bank building, or between some way to control access for people? Any discussion on that?
No. This is the first time that's been brought up.
Okay. I know that you're going to be using a lot of space there. We're going to bring in some temporary buildings for bathrooms and
Correct.
showers, and for privacy issues, I think it might make sense to think about that, not only for the homeless people that will be staying there, but for residents and safety issues, and I'm concerned about just the traffic that's going to change there. So
Okay.
that's my thoughts.
All right.
Mike?
Yeah, the F&I committee was scheduled to take a serious look at the Key Bank building, and then there was a resolution pushed through that leapfrogged that and said it wasn't going to happen. I would be opposed to spending a whole lot of money on improvements here, especially since hopefully this is only going to be used for 6 months. And we're already getting negative feedback about it, its proposed use. And that probably would be wherever we put a warming facility. Other municipalities are having the same issues. But I just don't want to see us spend a whole lot of money there and then take the building down.
Anything further on downtown facilities? Thank you.
All right,
Thanks
thank you.
for staying with us. Frank Dolo, our Chief Transportation Officer. Got some information for us this morning, Frank, and request for proposals from transportation. I don't know if, ID number 12730, I don't know that you've got anything formal that you're looking for us to move today.
Nothing formal to remove. Based on the current procurement policies and procedures that the county has, we are to report to the committee that we report to on what RFPs and what information we have available. So if you'd like, I can start with number one. And
sure.
Is that okay? So back in 2019, 2020, there was a grant written that this body, the full ledge, accepted called the Mobility as a Service Grant. It's part of the research side of FTA. And Tompkins County was awarded $850,000. Then, of course, as you know, COVID hit. They got a few pieces accomplished as part of the grant. And then we got the group together and we're moving forward on it with FTA's blessing. One piece of that is an app, a web page for Tompkins County residents and residents coming into the area to have one location to be able to search all the transportation modes that are available to them in the county. For this piece of the $850,000 grant, it was allocated up to $100,000. We put the RFP out. We had 8 bidders. We have not, the group has not selected at this time. We have finalists that we brought in and they did presentations, and the committee's meeting today to see how they'd like to move forward. So my plan is in the October meeting, I will update you all on if a vendor's been selected and what the decision was for the group.
Thanks, Frank. 8 is a nice number to hear, interest-wise.
Yeah, we had 16 active participants in the process, which was great. And then we had 8 submit proposals. I want to thank Joyce Burke and her team. We had over 50 questions that had to get posted, and we had to answer, and purchasing staff's been amazing. If there's no questions on that, I'll go to the next one. Is that okay, Lee?
Go ahead.
Okay. As part of the mobility vision that you all adopted, we have recently just posted, it's been posted, for mobility management and one call, one click center. So you all know what mobility management is now based on the vision and based on what I provided to you. The RFP is going to be for up to $200,000, where the RFP has to be posted for 30 days. So I will be able to give you an update for your October 17th meeting, but it'll probably only be how many proposals that we've received. We won't be able to let you know who's been selected. That'll probably be the November meeting. Any questions on that RFP? Okay, and then the one call, one click center, we have up to $250,000 for this RFP. It just got posted, I believe, yesterday. Again, the October 17th meeting. The purpose of this is to have one location that people can call, look on the website, use the app. They'll have a human being there to answer all their transportation needs and also troubleshoot with mobility management to try to implement new programs and services to break down those barriers. That's the information.
Questions, Susan and Randy?
Be jumping way ahead, but the one call, one click, where would that be? Where would the person be located? Or would it just be, I'm at home, but I have all the answers?
I will be able to provide that information to you when the agency is awarded for that. So more information to come on that.
Thank you.
Randy?
Yeah, Frank, thank you. Through this process, will people know what the cost or cost would be for these transportation options as well when they call, or is it just this is an option?
No, the hope is, the vision is that people will be able to call, know what the price is, hopefully be able to book the trip right there with the one call, one click, learn how to use the TCAT system or the Gadabout system, or sign them up for Gadabout, or sign them up for bike share, or refer them to Ithaca car share. It's not just going to be a call, it's going to be really customer service focused. So we are not sending a person here, sending a person there. We're going to try to solve all their problems with one location.
I know a few people that are in rural areas and they use Uber or something else like that. It's extremely expensive. I was surprised, $25 to get to Enfield and back. I mean, that's a lot of money, and especially for groceries or those types of things. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and with Uber and Lyft, as you know, they have their prices increased when the demand increases and the availability of drivers is not there. So $25 might be a good day where there's not a surge price.
Right.
Any further questions for Frank? Mike?
don't know if it's the right place to ask this, but there was a sign down in front of the planning department saying that electric scooters and bicycles are now legal. And I went down the street behind somebody on a scooter a couple days ago, and they weave as they're going along. Scared me to death. And the electric bicycles they're more steady, at least in the way they're going. Do we have any options on those things, or is it just state law just says, they can be anywhere they want, or does anybody know?
So I can fill you in a little bit.
Thank you.
But don't quote me.
I won't quote you.
Okay.
On tape.
There is a limit, the state law limit on electric bikes and electric scooters on how fast they can go. Again, don't quote me on it. I believe it's 15 miles per hour that they're allowed to go. They are supposed to travel in roadways, and that's why it's really important that the city look at creating bike lanes so that they are not weaving in and out of traffic. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, except that when I say weaving, it wasn't weaving in and out of traffic. It's just weaving in a straight line to try to go along.
I see Fernando de Aragon has joined us, ITC. Did you have anything to add to that, Fernando?
No, I agree with what, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
I agree with what Frank said. They're legal. Our challenge as a community, and it's not just the city, but anywhere these will operate, is to be able to provide safe infrastructure, and so that we can accommodate this other modes more safely. But I agree with you that scooters are a little less stable as you go along. I mean, I've used them, and it's just, small wheel and whatnot. Any little deviation kind of takes you off your track.
Yeah. I don't know whether still, when they got really popular in New York City, there were a lot of accidents. People got hurt very badly or killed. Car doors opening, weaving out, in and out of traffic, those kinds of things.
Right. As I understand, municipalities can regulate or scooter use in share services. So if they wanted to have a bike share, I think a bike share wanted to expand to scooters, the city would have a say in that. But there's been, I think from the beginning, there's been the interest has been to provide the e-bikes, but not the scooters. Certainly in the city and from the bike share perspective.
Thanks for that insight.
I have a question on that.
Randy, and then Ann's got a question as well.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by electric bikes. And so I've been online looking, and a friend of mine's got one. He goes 28 miles an hour, it'll go. So and it was like $1,400 or something like that. So it's a nice bike. So, and I see a lot of people riding these bikes well over 15 miles an hour. Is that considered a motorcycle? And do they have to license these things, or is it just catch as catch can? And
no, they're considered bicycles. I think there's 3 types of bikes: level 1, 2, 3. Level 3 bikes. If you ask me, level 3 bikes bring those topics up because they're allowed to have a throttle. And I think the maximum speed is 28 miles an hour. The e-bikes that you have with bike share right now have a maximum speed of 16, and they're level 1 bikes that you need to have. If you don't pedal, you don't go anywhere. You need to be pedaling to move it. It doesn't have a throttle. So, that's where we stand in the laws now. I mean, we can discuss what's what. I'm not a big fan of throttle bikes. I think if you're not pedaling, then you got a different kind of vehicle, but that's where we stand now.
And if there's an interest, I would encourage, and I can reach out if there's interest, to have Jeff Goodmark come, and he's the expert in electric bikes and can fill you in more on that.
Ian?
I'm just
Jeff is
thinking,
the director of Ithaca Bike Share.
yeah, I'm not on this committee, but I just think it'd be helpful to have somebody here that really knows, because I'm hearing people say different things. In New York State, it's actually 20 miles per hour that e-bikes can go. So if somebody has, I have an e-bike, I have one myself with a throttle, I have a bad knee, and so there's times where I'm out riding and I need just to be able to ride that bike because I can't pedal anymore. So I did get a bike with the throttle, but it can do also the pedaling assist in different levels. So it's 20 miles per hour, and they're still considered a bicycle. If somebody, and most generally, the laws that I've seen is if someone's selling a bike in New York that goes over 20, it's technically like an illegal bike, or somebody has hacked it to be able to go more than 20. Mine, I can see when it goes to 19, the electrical stuff shuts off. It won't go any faster unless I'm going really, steep downhill. But I usually don't let it go over 20. And I know, because I've had one for a couple of years, and people have been asking me, oh, are they legal? Are they okay to be on like the Black Diamond Trail? They're legal anywhere, and they have been. I think it was just codified in New York, but there's never been a law that e-bikes are not legal, but anywhere you ride a regular bike. And I know the slower you go, the harder it is to maintain a straight line as within a bike or a scooter or something like that. I know I've ridden motorcycles too. The slower you go, the harder it is to keep a straight line.
But Ann, aren't most trails, don't they prohibit motorized vehicles?
E-bikes are considered the same as bicycles.
They're motorized, though.
New York state law is they're considered the same as bicycles, so they are allowed anywhere a bicycle is allowed. That's New York state law.
That's crazy.
Well,
Sounds like a possible future topic here.
Yeah, and that's why I said, don't quote me, and to bring Jeff in. Jeff's the expert that could provide you all with the correct, exact information.
Thanks. Fernando, did you have anything you wanted to bring to us today, or just kind of sitting in?
Just sitting in?
Thanks. And Randy, you got one more item?
One more thing, last one. So the mobility study, actually I met with Newfield School and talked to them about transportation of youth using their buses when it's not regular school, right?
Correct, yeah.
So the opportunity of whether or not they could do later runs, for example, so that kids could participate in various activities. Is there any, and they're getting about 80% state aid on transportation. And they believe that if it's transporting youth while school is in session, so there's an issue of whether or not school's in session or not, and they don't know that exact answer yet, then they could use the school's vehicles and still get that transportation aid back. Are there any grants out there for transporting of youth?
I don't know at this moment, but I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mike.
At some point, I'd like to talk about the ITCTC meeting when you think it's appropriate.
Okay, why don't, let me finish up with Frank then. Anything further for us? You've presented at least kind of a steps forward for $1.3 million worth of grants that you're in the process of administering, and we've seen some action on those here, so we appreciate the update.
No problem. Thank you.
Also, Frank, could you introduce the person with you? I may have met you, but I can't remember your name.
That's okay. At the budget meeting, I'd like to again reintroduce my colleague, Courtney Horner. Courtney's the new transportation planner. Comes to us from New York City, graduate of Oberlin College, majored in environmental science with a concentration in urban planning, speaks 2 languages, German and Spanish, and I cannot be more thrilled to have them here joining us.
Good to meet you again, Courtney.
You too. Thank you so much.
Courtney, welcome.
Thank you.
I didn't want to have them speak. I wanted to ease them into that, so
That's fine.
give them some experience.
Mike, would you like to,
Just one thing came up I thought folks would like to know about. We had a joint meeting of the Policy and Planning Committees of ITCTC on Tuesday. And there are several projects that are in various stages that are state funded, such as the bridge over Teganic Creek, the Stewart Ave Bridge over Fall Creek, the Dryden Rail Trail Phase 2, Janung Road Bridge over Cascadilla Creek, and Freeze Road Bridge that have money that's been allocated, and the state's not really happy because some of those projects haven't moved along faster, and they all have particular reasons, and Fernando can correct me if I'm wrong here, but we questioned the state rep about it and wondered if there's our money funding is at risk, and he said no, but I think they said there was about 8 or 10 million been allocated for these projects, and only a little over $1 million had actually been spent. Seems to be trouble with the consultants, the engineers, for example, that just aren't turning the product out as fast as it needs to be done, and because there's a lot of projects, we assume. And just want to let you know the state is concerned and wants to see these projects advanced. And the other thing I should mention is that we learned that 2 major staff members at our MPO are going to be leaving us. Teresa Lind, who's been there for a long, long time, is going to retire in March. And our Fernando is going to retire. I think you told us sometime between June and September next year. Is that right, Fernando?
That's correct.
Okay, well, I thought folks would like to know that.
well, thanks for the update. I guess congratulations, Fernando. Sorry to see you moving on after quite a career here.
Thank you. I wanted to take a second, if I may.
Please.
Just that after the meeting, I talked with the folks from the state, and he apologized because he make things sound so dire, but even though projects have slid within the program, there's still we're in a pretty good place to get the projects completed before the end of the next fiscal year. And that's important because we're going to be developing a new project, a new 5-year program. And we want to make sure that the stuff in the current 5-year program gets obligated, that those monies get obligated on, within that program, so that they don't impact the next 5-year program that's going to be developed. And we're in a pretty good place for that. It seems like the projects that were in question are going to be able to obligate before the end of the next fiscal year. So we're going to keep on, and we're adding another meeting for project sponsors so that they can better coordinate their work. So we're going to take some action to help folks along and make sure that the projects move in a timely manner.
Any questions? Thank you for briefing us on that. Mike, thanks for keeping us posted on activities of the council. We had several budget adjustments and transfers for informational purposes. Were there any questions? If not, minutes from August 15th were included in the package. Is there a motion? Moved by Susan, second by Randy. Any corrections, additions? All in favor? Any opposed? Minutes carried. Any further business for the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee? I haven't seen you folks in a long time and just probably won't for a while. See you at 4:30. We'll stand adjourned.